Graphs and charts are a way of making a lot of data easy to understand, or at least they should be. They're supposed to give us a clear picture of what's going on, when the numbers alone might be confusing. The trouble is, they can also be used to misrepresent information. There's a saying, numbers don't lie, but there are ways in which the story told by graphs can be deliberately manipulated without changing any numbers. Here's a magazine advertisement for a car company published in 1992. It shows the percentages of different brands of cars sold 10 years earlier that were still on the road. The message the advertiser is trying to convey is, ours is easily the most durable vehicles you can buy. If you don't look at the details, you might come away thinking, not only is brand A the most durable, but it's about 7 times more durable than brand D. But if you look at the vertical axis, you'll see that it starts not at 0, but at 95. In other words, only the top 5% or 1/20th of the whole graph is shown. This tricks us into thinking the percentages are very different from each other. If we start the vertical axis at 0, this is what we get. So, when we see the whole graph, the percentages of the brands look almost the same, and brand A has very little advantage over its competitors. Another way of using graphs to deceive is what's called cherry picking. Here's a graph showing the global surface temperature between 2003 and 2012. It gives the impression that the surface temperature isn't really changing, so we might be led to believe that there's no significant global warming threat to the world. But what we're being shown is just a small, carefully selected part of a bigger graph. When we're presented with this bigger picture, we can see that the global surface temperature has increased significantly. Again, these two graphs tell different stories without changing any numbers. What about this graph? Let's say it shows the sales of a brand of smartphone. At first glance, it looks like the sales have increased sharply, but if we look closely at the timeline, it turns out that the time spans aren't equal. There are 9 months between January 2014 and September 2014, but 15 months between September 2014 and December 2015. That makes it seem as if sales have shot up. If we consider the number of sales per month though, we end up with a graph that tells a different story. There's been no big increase at all. Finally, here's a graph showing the number of pens of a certain brand sold in the US. It seems as if the product is performing well, but what the graph fails to take into account is the fact that the US population is growing. To get an accurate picture of how well the brand is doing in terms of market share, we can't ignore population. So the graph should be a percentage graph, which means that it should show how many pens were sold, say, for every 100 people. As you can see, including this factor changes the graph completely. In terms of market share, the sales of the brand of pen haven't actually gone up. So, the next time you see a graph shown on TV or in a magazine, look carefully at the details. The true picture may be very different from the one you're being asked to believe.